up, everyone? This is Adam Fromal and Dan Favale here with the Full Court Press. Today we want to talk about one of the hottest topics in the NBA. It's not the Miami Heat, it's not one of the other contenders, it's the Philadelphia 76ers. They've gotten off to this ridiculously surprising 3-0 start. We have no idea what's going on, how Michael Carter-Williams is looking like a Rookie of the Year favorite, and it's just been kind of mind-boggling and really fun to watch. So Dan, is this at all sustainable? Can they keep this going for even another week?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did it for another week. We've seen bad teams, well, I don't want to say bad teams, because this team is supposed to be historically bad, get off to an incredible start before. But even if it proved to be sustainable, which it's not, because they're hitting their shots at such a ridiculously high rate, but even if it proved to be sustainable, the Sixers aren't going to let it be sustainable, because if this team continues to shoot 50+% from the field, how many games do you think they're going to win, Adam, realistically?
I mean, even if they shoot 50% from the field, they're going to win, what, like 25, 30 games?
Exactly. So Sam Hinkie is not going to let it happen. He'll trade Thaddeus Young, Evan Turner, Spencer Haas if he continues to play like this, if he has to.
Well, plus, can we hone in on that three-point shooting first? I mean, they're over 50% from downtown so far this season. And if I look at that roster, there is not a single established three-point shooter on it. I mean, Michael Carter-Williams, the flaw in him was his three-point shooting. Tony Roden jump shot looked horrifically broken during the preseason. They've both been lights out from downtown. There's absolutely no way that that's sustainable.
That's also the thing about this team is how is that happening? How are they shooting these threes at such a ridiculously high rate? And is it just luck? Or are they just driven by something else? And I could see it being sustained. Michael Carter-Williams is shooting over 47%. I could see he's one of the only players on the roster who's not supposed to be able to shoot that I could see turning into a shooter. Evan Turner's never been known for his shooting, so maybe him. But who else on that roster do you think could even develop into someone who could hit 40% of their threes?
No one. And I mean, Thaddeus Young has never had that in his game, and I think against the Nets, he hit like three three-pointers in that one contest. I can't see that continuing. But I think what's really happening here is age. It's an incredibly young roster. I mean, before the season started, Brett Brown said that he had 6 NBA players on the team. The rest of the guys were fighting for their NBA lives. So I think what's happening more than anything else is teams don't have a scouting report on them, and they're incredibly motivated and driven to do well because they want to prove everyone wrong because of those historically low expectations, and they want to get roster spots. They want to prove that they can be around in this league for a long time. And that's a recipe for success at the beginning of a season, maybe in small sample sizes, but it's not going to keep up because eventually teams are going to be like, hey, look, this is this guy who we haven't scouted before. We know his tendencies now. We know that he's going to go left. We know he's going to go right. He's going to pull up after 2 dribbles. And once they have those down and they know that they do actually have to scout the Sixers, then it's not going to work anymore.
I agree with everything you just said, and you made the great closing point of what are these teams even scouting the Sixers? Like, one, there's the whole, I hate to question team's effort, but when you see the Sixers on the schedule, you probably thought that you could lay down and still win. But two, this group is relatively unknown. I mean, yeah, Evan Turner and Thaddeus Young, maybe their games are down to a science, but teams don't know how to defend more than half these guys that the Sixers are playing. So I almost liken it.
What reminds me of is Tobias Harris last year. So you remember, like, when he came over from the Bucks, he hadn't done anything with them, and he exploded with the Magic at the end of the year. And I'm convinced that was partially due to him being good, and partially due to other teams just being like, fuck it, we'll let him go off, like, we don't really care.
Well, I liken it to two things, but if we were to make a cross-sport comparison, it's like in the NFL when these new quarterbacks come onto the scene, and everyone was all up in arms about Robert Griffin or Colin Kaepernick. Like, they're still really good quarterbacks, but they're not having as easy a time in the pocket as they were last season because teams have scouted them. And it's really what it is, and it's a different extreme, obviously, because I could see Carter-Williams being a really good player, but it's the Jeremy Lin effect. They don't know how to defend them. They don't know what to expect from these guys, especially when a lot of these guys have been written off. So I don't know how people are going to... Someone said to me today that they think the Sixers can make the playoffs. They're out of their fucking minds if they think that's true. It's not going to happen. They're not built to make the playoffs. They're built to tank. And the Sixers, even if it is sustainable, which we've said it isn't, the Sixers are going to make sure that it's not. They're going to trade somebody.
I heard someone else say that today, too, and they were like, I mean, are they really that much less talent? Other teams competing in the East? Yes, they are. You know what they don't have? A star. I mean, you look at any of the other teams. The Hawks have Al Horford. The Wizards have John Wall. The Pistons have potentially Andre Drummond, but they also have Josh Smith and Greg Monroe. I mean, it's not going to happen. And don't point to MCW as a star yet. This is not. I mean, he might have a great season. He's unquestionably the Rookie of the Year favorite right now, in my opinion. But he's not going to keep shooting over 50% from behind the arc. I mean, I don't even think his parents think this is sustainable.
Well, you make two interesting points there that currently the Sixers have 3 guys shooting over 50%, and one of them is Thaddeus Young, who's shooting 60%. So no one's going to continue shooting like that. But you brought up another great point that I have issue with. What is the difference? Why are people up in arms? Because I said it earlier today. Why do people get all freaked out when you say that Michael Carter-Williams is the favorite for Rookie of the Year? What's the difference between me saying so after 3 or 5 games as opposed to saying so about Victor Oladipo before he even steps foot on the court? I can't stand that. I'm not saying he's going to win. I think if he keeps playing anywhere close to this, he will. But right now, he's the clear favorite. There's no other rookie has had a 20-point game yet, and he's had 2.
That's true. I think only he and Nate Wolters have had multiple 5-assist games so far.
You're absolutely right. I wrote that today, and I thought of you when I wrote it. I almost wanted to cry when I wrote it because it's true.
Hey, Wolters is going to be a stud down the road. I stand by that.
That's a conversation for a different day that I probably won't even listen to. But I don't understand why. What's the problem there? It's not even like we're saying, if people told me he was going to win, I would listen to that argument right now. But they should at least be able to be listening to us saying he's the favorite. Because he is. Who else would you say is the favorite? He's had the best start. There was no favorite coming into the season. You could say Oladipo, but this draft was chaos. It was utter chaos. You didn't know who was going to be number 1. You didn't know who the best rookie was. So he's the favorite right now because he's been the best rookie early on. I don't even think there's a question.
It has to come down to him, Victor Oladipo, and Vitor Favarani for the Boston Celtics. No one saw coming. I mean, I'm serious, though. He's looked good.
Favarani fever.
Yeah, I can see it. But I think the difference is that before the season started, we were basing our predictions and who we thought the favorite was off pure speculation. So the small sample size argument couldn't really come into effect. So now that the narrative is shifting based on just a couple games, that might be what you could point to as the reason for it changing. I don't agree with that because even one game of data is better than none. But I guess I can see where people are coming from even if I don't agree with it.
Now, here's my question, though. Kind of moving away from the Rookie of the Year argument, what do you think the Sixers are going to do to ensure that they tank, if anything? Do you think it could be something where they don't play MCW as much? Because in my mind, they'll let him do what he can do because he's so big part of their future.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to experience any sort of decline in minutes or anything, but every move that's been made recently has been geared towards tanking. I mean, you have to remember that the Sixers traded Drew Holiday, an all-star point guard, for an injured center. I mean, that happened. You cannot gloss over that fact. So the ultimate plan is still to finish as close to the top of the Andrew Wiggins sweepstakes as possible, despite what the early season wins could do. And we have to remember that 3 wins to start the season is no different than having 3 wins spaced out throughout the season in terms of overall record. So if they do keep winning, they're going to make a trade. Evan Turner, who they're not going to re-sign from everything we've seen, and or Thaddeus Young is going to be on the move. And I know you have an interesting trade idea.
I don't know, it's not really so much of an idea, but if they're really committed to tanking, you can swap straight up Evan Turner. Well, not straight up, but you can swap Evan Turner and Thaddeus Young for Amari Stoudemire. And he's not, even if he plays, and even if he plays well, he's not going to give you more than 20 minutes a game. So he's not going to give you the type of production those two are combining for. And when I was looking on ESPN, it decreases their projected win total for this season by 20 games. So if you're
interested, puts them at what, like -8?
Yeah, like I don't even. I guess they might be projected to win like 21 now, so maybe it puts them at 1 or 2. But I think they won't do that. I think they should because I'm a Knicks fan and Amari's contract, while I love him, is killing me. But that's besides the point. They're going to need, if they keep this up, they're going to need to make a trade like that. Like, I'm not saying for Amari, but they're going to need to make a trade that makes them worse because while we don't think these guys are going to play like this all season, what if they do? Like, let's do the implausible. What if they do? What do you see the Sixers doing? Moving Thad Young, Turner, maybe Spencer? Like, what do you see them doing?
What I think's going to happen is we don't know what the market is for these guys right now, and if they tried to trade them at the moment, they probably couldn't get that much in return, and they'd be looking at either cap flexibility or future draft picks for sure. What I see happening, if this success is sustained for even a small period of time, is once this topsy-turvy early portion of the season gets a little bit settled down and we have an idea of the teams that are kind of on the fringe of competing for a championship and know they need one more part, that's when they start to dangle Young. That's when they start to hang Evan Turner out there and see if they can get a first-round pick for him, and you'll probably see someone bite. It won't be a panic move like the Wizards trading for Gortat. It'll be a more thought-out decision because they know that this is that one piece we need to actually put us in contention, and we're close enough that that we want to do that this season.
Who do you think has the higher trade value right now? I know a lot of people are down on Turner, but I love Turner.
I think it's Turner. I loved him coming out of the draft a while back. He has not proven me right so far, but he's looked like a different player this year. He's shooting the ball much better. He's been explosive and has this great attacking mentality. And he's young. He's young. He still has a lot of time to break out, and I kind of want to say he's looked like a poor man's LeBron so far.
Oh, boy. All right. I'm going to sidestep that one because you sound like you're out of your goddamn mind, but...
Well, let me say by poor man's, I mean like I have like $1 or $2.
All right, I'll give you that one. What do you think ultimately happens though with this team? What is your projected win total right now? Who do you think's going to be traded, if anybody? And what do you think just winds up happening this season?
Going into the season, I have them at 8 wins, which would have given them the worst winning percentage of all time. After the first 2 games, I bumped it up to 13 because it was clear just how much heart they had. After this third one, I want to say they can finish with around 20 wins. But if they get to that total, they're going to have to trade someone. So I do see Turner being moved. I don't think Thaddeus Young gets traded.
You don't think they'll trade that Young?
I don't think they can justify trading both.
I guess that's fair, and it makes more sense to trade Turner because he's going to be the free agent and will leave for nothing anyway. I have them capped out at 20 wins. I believe when I did my win-loss predictions, I might have given them 13 or 15, maybe something around there. But I have them capped at 20 because, like we've just been parroting this entire podcast, Sam Hinkie's not going to let it get to the point where they're toiling with 25, 30 victories because that'll take them too far out of where they want to be in the lottery. And I think what we're overlooking, how people are saying, oh, they're tanking wrong. You know, if they wind up in that range of like 15 to 20, that might not be a bad thing if you have the Suns and the Jazz winning less or something, because the worst team doesn't always get the first pick, as we've seen.
Exactly. Now, another thing that I think we have to remember is who's tanking. It's not Brett Brown who's tanking. It's not the players who are tanking. They aren't going to go out there and try and intentionally miss shots. Brown isn't going to jeopardize his future as an NBA head coach. It's the organization itself. For it to happen, they're going to have to move someone.
I actually disagree with the one point. The players will never do that. It would be horrible if they did. But let's go back to the one GM who said that their team was tanking, the one anonymous GM. He said that it gets cleared with the coach that he's apprised of the situation. And the other teams in the NBA know that this is how it works because some of them have been in the position before too. So it's not going to be held against the coach if he starts making decisions. I don't think you'll all of a sudden see the coach telling his players to miss shots or something, but I could see Brett Brown all of a sudden limiting Michael Carter-Williams' minutes, or if someone has a little bit of an injury, putting them in crazy bubble wrap even though they don't need to be. So
Can I just say how crazy it is that we're saying that to cause tanking, we're talking about limiting Michael Carter-Williams' minutes? I can't wrap my head around that right now.
Right now, I don't think they would, but if it gets to the point where they have to, I think Brett Brown is on board with it. I don't think it damages his reputation because that's his job, and the other teams know how it is, especially the teams that have tanked in the past. So I don't think the players will ever do it. Even if they're incredibly devoted to the team and their future, they're not going to all of a sudden start playing worse on purpose. But I could see the coach finagling with his rotation enough to make it happen.
Do you think Brown's already proved that he is a long-term NBA coach?
Absolutely. Not a doubt in my mind.
3 games. That's all it took.
That's all it took. It took me one game because you had his team on the precipice of beating the Heat, and he coached them to beat the Heat. That's a rookie coach, his first game. I'm sold on him. I'm sold. And he didn't, when he had every opportunity to help his team lose that game, which a real tanking coach, I think would have. I think it took some guts to coach his team to win that game.
I agree, and I think it's also notable that he's a rookie coach, kind of like Pablo Prigioni was a rookie point guard last year. I mean,
I love you for saying that. I just want to say that.
He's coached for the Spurs forever. He had the Australian national team in the Olympics, right? Like, he's got some experience under his belt.
Well, I think that's why you're allowed to be sold over 3 games, which I didn't really touch upon before, because he has that history. So it's not like it's not like, you know, Brad Stevens in Boston where you're supposed to be sold on him after. I am kind of sold on him, but different story. But this guy has the NBA experience and the credentials, so it's easy after a couple games to be like, this guy knows what he's doing. I think it's easier, at least. Now, I know you're waiting for this because I can see it on your face. It is that time again.
Bacon! Bacon! Where's the bacon? I smell bacon! 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 Gotta be bacon! Only one thing smells like bacon! That's bacon!
That's right, it's what burns my bacon, and today we're going to find out what's making Adam pissed off. Here we go.
It's all about Kevin Love. You know, I'm watching him dominate against the New York Knicks after a great start to the season, and it just boggles my mind how people can't call him a superstar, or even a star for that matter, because their argument always centers around the fact that he's never led the Minnesota Timberwolves to the playoffs. That's ridiculous. He's never had a roster that can go to the playoffs, and when he has, they haven't been able to stay healthy. You cannot base an individual assessment on how the team does when they aren't dealt supporting pieces. If LeBron James had to go out and play with 4 of me, he would not make the NBA playoffs. Even he is not that good. So yes, Kevin Love's a superstar. Yes, he's going to continue being a superstar throughout this year and the next couple because he's still remarkably young, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to make the playoffs this year.
That's what burns Adam Bacon today. Tell us what makes you sizzle, and also tell us why you think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to win the championship this season. For Adam Fromal, this is Dan Favale with the Full Court Press. Have a good one, everybody.